Hello, friends. It is I, Jay, and it is time for another Astrology forecast. This time, we're chatting about the full moon in Aquarius, which is happening on August 9th at 3:55 a.m. Eastern at 16 degrees of Aquarius. 16 degrees of Aquarius is right in the smack of the dab in the heart of Aquarius, and of course that means the sun is across the way at 16 degrees Leo, and because the sun is halfway or it's reached the halfway mark of Leo, that means that we've reached the halfway mark between the June solstice and the September equinox. So we're kind of in this real just midway point. We're not at the beginning of summer, we're not quite at the end of summer. We're just where the northern hemisphere is concerned. Anyways, we're sort of in the middle of this season of nature, and as the sun continues to move throughout Leo, we are sort of crossing a threshold of sorts. And the full moon, it's this peak point of the lunar cycle. It's the height of the lunar cycle. It's the climax. It's all been leading to this. Up until the moment of the full moon, the moon has been building and accumulating and growing in size and getting lighter and brighter. And afterwards, it's going to shift into the phase of letting go and waning and losing light and losing shape. And the few days before the full moon, the few days after the full moon, there's like this weight of energy that is in the air. It's like the energy is just suspended there. It's almost like the weight of the abundance that the moon is holding on to. It's kind of like when you reach the top of the roller coaster and you're just sort of sitting there for a couple of minutes before like the descent is on the other side, but you're just kind of waiting up there at the top. And in addition to that kind of fullness of the full moon, the ripe nature of it, the abundance of it, the weight of it, there's a heaviness in addition to that because it's a full moon ruled by Saturn, and Saturn's like this big serious guy, and so that adds a lot of like sobering reality, rules, responsibilities, like that kind of heavy energy. And right now Saturn is in Aries, which it doesn't love being in Aries. It's not a great like condition for the planet, and it's also moving retrograde, which is super normal. All the outer planets do it every single year, but it just means that it's, not in its best shape or form. So there's kind of like that weight of reality, when you like come home from a vacation and it's like, oh shit, yeah, I gotta like do all of this normal stuff again. There's like the weight, there's like a sobering realization sort of packed into this full moon. And I feel like there's something that's on its way out. As I said, once the full moon has passed, the moon will move into its phase of letting go and shedding and releasing. So that kind of fits with that cycle already, just that once we reach the full moon, we've reached the pinnacle, the sort of, like I said, the climax of the story. And from here on out, things will start to wane and fade away in a sense. But with the moon being ruled by Saturn, currently traveling retrograde, and also so close to Neptune, there's something here about like the dissolving and the deconstruction of structures, of the rules and the boundaries and the walls and like the containers that we're used to working within. Neptune has this it has a dissolving quality to it. It kind of has a foggy, like undefined nature to it. So where Saturn is all about boundaries and structure and limit and like tangible sort of, walls and limits, Neptune is it's the water that is constantly rushing over the rocks and like eroding everything into sand. And so because this is happening in Aquarius, and Aquarius is an air sign, this could be about the dissolution or the dissolving or the deconstruction of like ideas and understandings. We're thinking about the mental realm when we're in air sign energy. Maybe there's a certain logic or rationale that we've trusted and relied on in the past that really is just not adding up for us anymore. It could also be about our communities or our social connections that are maybe either breaking down and dissolving, or that need, a complete restructure, a complete rebuild. And this rebuilding, this reconstructing process is part of the Saturn and Aries story in general. So it's kind of bringing that theme into the full moon. And it's an ongoing process. We're in the thick of it. And actually, we're really only towards the beginning of that Saturn and Aries journey. But it is kind of an in-between space that we're in right now when we consider, where the sun and the moon are at, where we are in the year. There's this betwixt and between kind of energy. It's a little eclipsey in a way, but we're not at eclipse season yet. And, that state of being in between, that liminality, that transitional energy is not comfortable for everybody. It can feel a little funky, right? And it's like, we're not in that first half anymore, but we haven't quite reached the second half. If I may quote the icon Britney Spears, we're not a girl, not yet a woman. It's tough. And maybe there's probably some of us that are like, I'm not ready to go to that next step. I'm not ready to be a woman yet. It feels like it's moving too fast and I'm getting pushed towards this. And then another half of us is probably like, damn, I'm good on being a girl. I can't wait to be a woman. Like, let me get to that next step. And it's like frustrating that everything is taking so long. And that's kind of that like discomfort of being in the in-between. And then for some of us, we will know that we have been approaching this threshold. We will know that this is what was, in the future for us. And some of us, we won't know that that was coming. We won't realize that that was a thing that was awaiting us. But either way, I feel like it feels a little bit uncomfortable to fully accept in the moment. And with Saturn bringing it brings the sobering reality check, but Neptune is also like keeping things a little foggy and a little unclear. So it's like you're just kind of in this in-between state of a little bit of disbelief maybe, or not, just not being able to like fully take on whatever is being illuminated by that full moon. Now that said, the dissolution of certain structures and, boundaries can be very liberating. Like, we are free of the limitations and restrictions that were imposed before, but often it comes at the cost of something, some sort of like foundation or support, maybe a loss of security or safety in some sense, even if that's only a perceived sense of safety, security, foundation, support. Again, Aquarius is an air sign, so we can get really caught up in our heads with this much like air energy. But being in the state, being in the process of rebuilding is just kind of frustrating and uncomfortable because you're not in one space and you're not in the other. You're in the center. And Saturn is in total tear down and rebuild mode in the condition that it's in. And Aquarius is actually really great at seeing a better future, a more inclusive future. It's very forward thinking. So it is a good opportunity to kind of envision, okay, this is the state that I'm in right now, but what do I actually see coming out of this? I know where I've been. I can maybe learn from that and then apply that to whatever is coming next for me. And while it will be so helpful to have that more positive energy from Aquarius, or that at least more like, we don't have to, we can learn from the past, but we can also move on from it and we can create something that is better for us. So using that, glass half full kind of energy to think positively about what awaits us next or what we actively want to move towards. When I look at the chart of the full moon, when I think about the energy, the vibe of it all, the full moon really does seem to be illuminating, highlighting, putting the spotlight on this space between the before and the after, which, that's the present moment, right? Like the before and the after, that's the past and the present, and the space in between is right now, right? Like it's just right now. It's the stuff between here and there. So like, what can we see from that vantage point of the top of the roller coaster, as long as our hands aren't doing this, right? But I just sort of feel like we know where we've been. We don't need to look back. We can see where we're going, but we actually can see really best like what's right here, which might be the back of somebody else's head or something, but like that's what's right in front of us right now. And I think there could be potential issues connecting in with that present moment in a more physical or emotional way. Again, Aquarius is an air sign, so we are in a very mental, a very cerebral state of things. We can, again, get really caught up in our heads, which might have us like future tripping a little bit too much. And sometimes the detachment that, Aquarius is so often accused of being like emotionally distant or detached, but like, I don't think it's that Aquarius energy can't have emotion. It's that it's just really, it excels at being able to look at things rationally, look at things objectively. And sometimes that level of detachment is so helpful because we can get an objective view of what's actually going on. But it can also be uncomfortable, a little anxiety inducing. It kind of depends on what type of person you are generally, right? But like with that much air energy, I do feel like it can be helpful to, do some breathing exercises or like go outside and just try to connect back in with the body when it all becomes like too stimulating on the brain and the nervous system, and just trying to get some of that extra jitter anxiety out. Now, as this full moon is perfecting, so as it's reaching its fullest of the full, Saturn, the ruler of the full moon, is inching towards a sextile with Uranus over in Gemini. Now, this is the second time that Saturn and Uranus have met via sextile this year. The first one was back in early April when Saturn was still in Pisces and Uranus was still in Taurus. And we're actually going to have a third iteration of this in January of 2026 when Saturn is back in Pisces again and Uranus is also back in Taurus. So this is the only version we're getting between Saturn in Aries and Uranus in Gemini, but it's still in this series of 3. And so there again, we see even more of that like midway, halfway point energy. We're at the second iteration of 3. And this combination, this conversation between Saturn and Uranus, to me does really suggest that whatever structures or rules or routines, foundations, connections, ideas, perceptions, whatever is dissolving, whatever is coming apart and breaking down and coming undone is ultimately in service of finding more freedom, of finding something that provides more flexibility and allows more space for authenticity and innovation. And honestly, I think this Saturn-Uranus sextile offers a little bit of softness to the full moon. I think it is a little bit hopeful just because Uranus can be very chaotic and destabilizing. It's kind of the same energy of wanting to break things down to, completely redo something in a totally different way. And so that creates change and chaos and sort of discomfort along the way. But typically a Uranus transit is all about, okay, what do I actually want? Like, what am I actually trying to move towards? Who am I actually? And how can I bring that more out into the world so I can feel more like myself, or so that my priorities actually feel like they're in alignment with the kind of person I say I want to be, or that I think I am, or whatever the case might be. Making major changes in your life to reflect who you are doesn't often come without some level of instability for at least some period of time. But the point with Uranus is really to surrender to that chaos, again, in order to create something that really does reflect current needs, priorities, desires, personality, just who you are, essences, whatever. And it's really a chance to update and refresh. You've maybe tried something one way dozens of times, and it's really just time to flip the script, to go against the grain, to take the path that feels a little wild, but will probably support independence and autonomy to a greater extent in the future. So this full moon, it does feel a little heavy. It does feel like there's going to be some kind of reality check that is hard to fully swallow, to fully accept. There's something that is on its way out, and maybe we want it to be on its way out. Maybe we can't fucking wait for it to be done. But maybe we are kind of clinging on to something and unable to let it go in all forms. But there is some hope from the sextile between Saturn and Uranus, and from Aquarius's energy itself, and being so forward thinking of just like, look, it's not always easy to leave the past behind, but the future that we're moving towards is good. there is hope there. There is something for us there. And it just takes some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride, okay? Everything will be just fine. Everything will be all right. I think I screwed that up, but you get it. I know you do, because y'all are so smart. Also, all the comments people left on the last video, thank you so much. Like, truly, it was, I'm verklempt. I'm beside myself. No, but for real, it was very nice. It was very uplifting and encouraging, and I thank you for that. So hopefully this has been helpful. Let me know in the comments if there's any questions, concerns, queries. Do you need clarification on something? I'm happy to provide. I hope that you have a lovely full moon. If it feels heavy, have a good cry, or write something down, or sing or dance or something. Get the energy out. Go lay on the grass. I don't know. Breathe. Just breathe, my babes. We'll get through it. It's just another full moon, but we'll get through it. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching. I will be back soon with more astrology insights and other cosmic chit chat. But until then, everyone, I'll catch you in the cosmos.